TGIF, everybody. It is 8:16 a.m. on this 30th of May, 2025, Friday, May 30th, 2025, the last Friday in May. So yeah, I wanted to come on here as best I can, as early as I can, because honestly, right now it's one of those situations to where, the matriarch is home because it's graduation day, and they want to, and they've asked for this day off, and they've asked for this upcoming Monday off. So that's why I'm doing this in this manner, to try to get something out to you guys while I have the opportunity. But anyway, first of all, I do apologize if you hear any boom booms. Those are like notifications, text messages, you name it, Facebook message, and all that. Also, I apologize if you hear a big boom. That'll be my bank indicating that something did not go through, which won't be an issue because it's the weekend, so I don't think we have to worry about that right now. And it's the last 2 days of the month, so pretty much I think we're in the clear. And also, I do apologize if I sound a little quiet. Like I said, I'm trying to do this as best I can with the opportunity I have. And also, if I sound a little coughy at times, it's allergy coughs. You get the tickle in your throat during the allergy season and all that. So I do apologize for that in advance. But with that said, see, that's what I was talking about by cough. But with that said, let's get on to the topic of the video here. So there was a report that came out yesterday. I think it was yesterday, at least over the past 24 to 48 hours, where Jonathan Coachman, the coach, formerly in WWE, he'd come out on his Coach and Bro show with Vince Russo, and he had basically said, well, at least I think it was on his Coach and Bro show. He may have done his own little clip, if you will, as well. But he basically came out and said that through various sources that he's in contact with, that he's heard that that he has heard, and this is from various sources. He said and he's indicated these are very reliable sources within the wrestling business, if not within WWE, that have all come out and said that Vince McMahon wants to buy back WWE from TKO. Now, this was further elaborated on, if not extended on, by Dr. Chris Featherstone, whose name might sound familiar to you when it comes to these kind of reports, or extending on these kind of reports, if you will. And just about everybody, from even Dave Meltzer to Brian Alvarez, to Fightful Select with Sean Ross Sapp, PW Insider with Mike Johnson. Just about everybody has come out, even those that come on here on YouTube and other platforms like JD from NY206 of Off the Script, Solomonster, Jason Solomon of Solomonster Sounds Off, Alex Hicks of Just Alex, Just Alex's World, Greg Morgan, who you'll see highlighted in one of the images here with their tweet, and so on and so forth, A&B Convos, you name it. Everybody has come out and pretty much said that, with all due respect to Jonathan Coachman, the coach, basically his claim, if you will, from these reliable sources, that Vince McMahon wants to buy back WWE from TKO is false. It is absolutely asinine, it's false, and mostly it will not happen. Because I don't know if Coach forgot or something, but Vince McMahon sold a majority of his stock to, those within TKO. And by doing so, in giving up majority ownership of the company, to Endeavor, that formed TK, that basically used this new partnership with WWE and along with UFC to create TKO, that along with selling his stock and selling majority ownership to those at Endeavor, and TKO, that basically he's given up any control or any potential possibility of trying to buy back the company. He's pretty much given up his power, and he's resigned also from the board. So even if legitimately some of what Coach is saying is true, even if some of that is true, the thing is, Vince McMahon, he's not going to have the opportunity to buy back the company, especially with what's going on right now. Because right now, believe it or not, another report that came out about Vince McMahon is that John Laurinaitis is pretty much turning his back on Vince and is willing to help Janelle Grant with any evidence she needs, when it comes to her lawsuit against Vince and by extension WWE. So any thought, any thought or opinion on the fact of, or any possible source telling someone like Coach and others that, hey, Vince wants to buy back the company, I would take those sources if I was Jonathan Coachman, and I say with all due respect, no offense, and if I'm Chris Featherstone and others, if you believe any of that, I would take those sources' information with a very big grain of salt. That's what I would do. I would take it with a very big grain of salt because, look, I understand that a lot of people, even in the business, who have ties to the business, from being in it, I can understand a lot of folks, not being happy with TKO changing things up, in WWE to a point that now it even affects events like WrestleMania. I mean, if there's one thing those that have been critical about Vince throughout the years and the way he's booked things, if there's one positive thing they will say about him, one positive thing is that when he sets his sights on a location for WrestleMania, even if it's back to back, there ain't no change in his mind. There's none. There's no change in his mind whatsoever. Like when he came up with the idea to put WrestleMania 9 at Caesar's Palace in a makeshift outdoor stadium, basically the parking lot of Caesar's Palace, if you will. As a lot of people, have said it, have said as much, especially in the recent documentary. When Vince decided he wanted to do it there, no matter what other people would say to him, no matter if they told him, hey, you should have it at the football stadium at UNLV Stadium, or you should have it in this venue or that venue, nothing was going to move him. Nothing was going to change his mind, if you will. Nothing was going to change his mind unless ticket sales didn't do very well. I mean, that's the reason, ticket sale wise, why they moved out of the LA Memorial Coliseum to the sports arena for WrestleMania 7. That, and the fact that because of the controversial storyline they were doing with Sergeant Slaughter at that time, and him being the WWF champion and going into the main event against the real American hero Hulk Hogan, and a lot of people feeling very discomforted about this angle they were doing, and all the threats that, according to Sarge, he was getting and everything, and Vince was hearing he was getting. If you're Vince McMahon at that time, do you really want a chance, something happening to one of your top stars, heels, if you will, especially the main event one, at that venue? No, you don't. So to me, it wasn't just it wasn't just ticket sales that changed the venue. It was also that kind of security concern and all that. But still, he kept it within the Los Angeles area. He didn't move it out of Los Angeles because ticket sales were low, or because they weren't given, a certain credit or whatever, or, the city didn't pay, what they should have. He kept it steady. He kept it there. Even when they started doing these stadiums and even the 2-night events, under Vince's regime before he resigned. When they started doing all this, when Vince set his sights on a location, he went with that location. End of discussion. He went with that location. You know, no matter whether somebody could say, well, why don't we go here and there instead? You know, bigger stadium, more money. No, when he set his tone on something or set his sights on something, he would do it. So I can understand that maybe the reason these quote unquote sources are telling Coach, hey, this is what we've heard. It is mainly probably sources not just from within WWE, maybe the corporate side of things, you know, but those within the business itself, the alumni and the Hall of Famers. The reason they're saying this is because they don't like the idea that TKO has basically, you know, stabbed New Orleans right in the back and taken away what they promised they were going to get next year. You know, because you know that's the only reason that people, these sources are telling Coach and others this kind of information. It's not because there's some it's not because there's some validity to it. It's not because there's some validity to it, or truth. You know, some evidence of truth to it, or anything like that. It's the fact that a lot of these people within the company, a lot of these people within the business, Hall of Famers and all that have ties to the company, like I said, they don't like the idea that TKO basically is focusing more on the money aspect of things instead of basically, you know, keeping the word, you know, keeping the promise, you know, and that's bad. You know, that's bad if you assume there. But that's bad. And look, I don't blame, you know, I don't blame them for feeling this way. And then basically probably hearing, you know, through, you know, various sources that you would have to take with a grain of salt and everything, you know, I don't blame them for hearing rumors and rumblings through various other sources, which like I said, you have to take with a grain of salt, that Vince wants to buy back the company. But again, here's the thing. Here's what Coach, here's what Featherstone, here's what those that are telling Coach and Featherstone and others this information. What they're seemingly forgetting is Vince sold a majority of his stock in the company. He sold a majority of ownership in the company, all to Endeavor and TKO, and basically he's resigned from the company as well. And also they have to realize that this whole Janelle Grant thing is still looming, and it's probably going to get worse for Vince, and by extension WWE, you know, in some cases, depending on who's also listed, you know, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse for Vince in that case. And if John Laurinaitis gives the evidence that's needed for Janelle Grant to basically, you know, get Vince, you know, put away, or at least Vince banned from the wrestling business forever and everything like that, you know, if he's willing to do that to help her, then pretty much all this talk, rumors, quote unquote, you know, speculation, sources telling things and all that, you know, little whispers and everything about Vince wanting to buy back the company, you can forget about it. You can forget about it. Because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen whatsoever. You know, the last thing Ari Emanuel would want to do is sell the company back to Vince, knowing that he'd be selling it to someone that's not only out of touch, not only someone that even I've read this somewhere, others have commented and said still believes it's the 80s and the 90s when it comes to, you know, storytelling and booking. You know, but Ari Emanuel is not going to sell it unless Vince can outprice him. And basically, and what I mean by outprice him is Ari Emanuel is going to ask for double, if not triple, you know, from Vince, you know, from Vince McMahon himself for what they paid, or for what Vince sold the company to him for. That's how it's going to be done. Vince would have to give him double, if not triple, the amount they paid Vince for the company, and that's a fact. That is an absolute fact. So this whole idea of Vince McMahon coming, you know, Vince McMahon, you know, wanting to buy back the company, again, mainly what it sounds like is a bunch of disgruntled people in WWE, you know, corporately, as well as those that have ties to WWE, you know, that being Hall of Famers, legends, alumni, you name it. To me, what this sounds like is a bunch of them just upset with WWE, well, not WWE, but with TKO, aka Endeavor, for doing what they did with WrestleMania when it came to New Orleans. They're upset about that. They feel like that's a slap in the face and everything, and that there's no call for it. And that all they're caring about is the money it brings in and not the wrestling aspect. And you also have to realize, too, that maybe some of these sources that are getting in contact with Coach, in contact with Featherstone, they might be some of those independent promoters that, as we speak, are trying to get on the horn with those in New Orleans and saying, yeah, we got to cancel our bookings for New Orleans, WrestleMania weekend, because WrestleMania is going to go someplace else. And they don't even know where the location is. Mainly, a lot of people are saying the main alternative location is going to be back in Las Vegas. And okay, fine. That's okay. Okay, fine. That's fine. That's suitable. But, they're going to have to move all of their events that can planned from New Orleans back to Las Vegas. Not saying that financially, not saying financially, they won't be able to make a profit. They will. But the point is, there's a lot of promoters and everything that are upset at the idea, that this is happening. And they're probably, talking to people like Coach, or at least, putting out the murmurs and rumblings and all that, from what they've heard, and they're passing it on, that, this Vince might be considering buying back the company. But again, what people are not understanding is it's not going to happen, because Ari Emanuel, if it's any truth to that, would be charging double, if not triple, the amount they paid to buy WWE from Vince, for Vince to buy it back from them. And also, you got the whole Janelle Grant situation now, with the John Laurinaitis wanting to pretty much help out and getting, this case resolved in Janelle Grant's favor. So I don't think we have to worry about Vince buying the company anytime soon. I don't think we have to, because again, if there was any truth, Emmanuel would be charging double, if not triple, if not quadruple the amount he paid to Vince for Vince to buy it back. And also, you got the Janelle Grant thing going on now, with the possibility that with Laurinaitis pretty much, turning his back on Vince, to help Janelle, then, yeah, you can pretty much, consider all that information you're hearing about Vince wanting to buy back the company to be pretty much worth, just basically pretty much worth the crapola that a horse does on the streets, during a fiesta, like a lot of horses are going to be doing this weekend in Patterson, California, at the Epcot Fiesta, when they're being ridden on by cops and everything, or in the parade tomorrow morning. So pretty much, you can, take those rumors and look at them as being as worthless. The speculation of that, Vince wanting to buy back the company, these sources, you can look at that information as being as worthless as that. As worthless as the horse crapola that they're going to crap onto the streets tomorrow during the fiesta when they're walking around and all that. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to come on here and give my thoughts on it. And overall, I don't think we have to worry about this whatsoever, because of everything I've mentioned and others have mentioned. I don't think we have to worry about it, whatsoever. And, I would just say, with all due respect to Jonathan Coachman, all due respect to Chris Featherstone, I know they have ties to the business and WWE and so on and other companies, but I would take the information you guys are getting with a very big grain of salt, and just look at it as, okay, it's disgruntled employees in WWE that don't like what TKO is doing. It's basically alumni and Hall of Famers and legends that don't like what TKO has, basically focused on over, focused majority over, the promises and everything. And also, I want you to consider that if there is any truth to it, I want Coach and Featherstone to realize this, that if there's any truth to it, that Vince would only be able to buy back for quadruple the amount he sold it for. So yeah, I think we can forget about that. And also, you got the Janelle Grant situation going on too, with Laurinaitis doing his thing. So yeah, I would just take what you're getting. I would take the information that you, Coach, you, Featherstone, and anybody else is hearing about this, take it with a very, very, very big grain of salt, and essentially look at it as people are upset at TKO removing WrestleMania from New Orleans after Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, publicly in front of the world on SmackDown promised they were going to get it. So that's all I'm going to say, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are overall. Comment if you like. Love to hear your thoughts on this situation. Do you agree with some of the things I said here? Do you think I have a point? And until next time, guys, I will talk to you all later. Do all the things in the description to help me out, guys. It would really be appreciated going forward. And until next time, I am out. Comment down below and comment in the live chat if you haven't already, as well as like the video, ring the bell for notification, subscribe to the channel, share the video. But give me your thoughts, guys, and until next time, I am out.